Hey, I am so excited to be doing an interview with one of my favorite MM authors, Sadie Hepworth. She calls herself a recovering academic, having taught art history at the college level. A true Jersey girl, she still inhabits the Garden State, also known as the land of the turnpike of my nightmares. She lives there with her partner and her daughters, and she's the author of two steamy MM romance novels, He's Not For Me, a second chance love story, and her upcoming release, Take It From the Top, about punk rockers Sam and Max, a book I absolutely loved. Sadie, it's so good to have you with me. Tell me about your life. What's happening in your life right now?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I am dealing with summer and dealing with having my little kids home all the time. So I am trying to get as much writing done as I possibly can, which is almost none, unfortunately, for everybody waiting for a sequel to He's Not For Me. I'm just, keeping them alive and reading lots of books when I can't write. And I'm having kind of a wonderful summer.
Oh my gosh, keeping your kids alive is definitely a full-time project. How old
Yeah,
are they
pretty
now?
much. They are 9 and 6. They just turned 9 and 6. So we
Oh
just
my
went through the whole
gosh.
birthday thing. And finally, I don't have to plan any more birthday parties, which is nice.
That's fantastic. My gosh. All right. So you have a new book coming out on August 4th, and it's called Take It From the Top, which I absolutely loved. I read it a long time ago, so I have to post all kinds of new stuff about it before it comes out. But can you give me like a 30-second elevator pitch about this book? Tell us what it's about.
Sure. So, as you said, it's a punk rock romance. It's set in 2002, which is, the tail end of punk rock, but things were still going on. It was before American Idiot came out, so there was still a little bit more time. Um, but it's about these two guys, Sam and Max, who have been best friends since they were babies. Sam has been in love with Max ever since he realized what love was. Max is a moron. So even though it is obvious to everybody but the two of them that they are destined to be together, Max hasn't gotten the memo yet. So they go on tour with their very crummy college punk rock band. They're going to be in a smelly van for 3 weeks, sleeping on basement floors. And we're just going to see what that stew is going to do for the two of them and whether they're going to finally figure it out.
Yeah, you called it idiots to lovers in one review, and I was like, that is so perfect.
Yeah, that's kind of my favorite trope, I think. Friends to lovers is one thing, but when you just have that constant deliciousness of these two people just completely sailing back like past each other all the time, and getting to write that from both points of view so that you can see how that's happening. It's just really, really fun to write.
That's awesome. Cole and Ezra did the same exact thing in He's Not For Me, which I devoured in one night yesterday because it was that amazing. So you've definitely got a fangirl in me. So tell me, did you have a favorite scene to write in this book?
Sure. You would think that it was a Sam and Max scene because obviously the story is about the two of them. But when I think about it and when I start thinking about like what my absolute favorite scene in the story is, it's actually one between Max and Roxy. And it is the scene, it's on day 8, I believe it is. It's when they're in Jersey City at the Edward Forty Hands party, when they're both drunk off their asses, having a very, very important conversation about identity. And it was just so much fun to have those two personalities playing with each other. Max is so happy-go-lucky and Roxy is so angry about everything all the time, but so wise in ways that Max really needs someone to be wise. And every single line in that I had fun with.
Roxy is such a fun character. Like
Yeah.
her little, like every once in a while, there would be like a little chapter that was just her like making a random comment, and she always had me laughing.
Yeah. I loved her. She's maybe my favorite in the whole book.
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's cool. Is she going to get a sequel, do you think, ever?
I am thinking about her because I definitely planted some seeds, I think, about
You
some
did.
things that might be going on with her. And I haven't quite decided how they would end up being resolved yet. So I do have a couple other prequel ideas planned, but one of them is a direct for Sam and Max, and one of them is a prequel for Sage, actually.
Okay. All right. This is all going to be very cool. Is there a sentence or a scene that you almost cut, but then you decided not to?
That's an interesting question too, because this is a book that's a little bit different from how I usually write because of the fact that I had to plan it so much more than I usually plan a book. I'm usually the kind of person that like, I get some vibes, I get an idea for like what the first chapter is supposed to be, and then I just jump right in and I start writing it. And then I call it like lily pads, like what are the lily pads that are going to take me to these later scenes that I have in mind. But because this one was an actual punk rock tour, I had to decide like what part of the country are they going to? What is the tour itinerary? What cities would have actually been really good for showing up to do punk rock in 2002? And so
Oh my
much
gosh.
research went into that and so much planning of like, what town should they be in when X scene takes place? That it ended up being more structured. But then the thing that was interesting was because I decided to write very early on, I decided to write every single day in the tour. And usually that's not how I write either. Like usually I'm like doodly doodly do. I'm bored now in this timeline. Let me jump into another timeline, or let's jump ahead for 3 weeks because I don't want to explain what's happening. So I had to write, because I'd written like the first 9 days, like I couldn't like skip day 16.
Absolutely.
So later on, some of those last days were very, very hard to write because I was kind of running out of like, what was I going to do to get them to the end? And one of my favorite days that came out of that was, I think it's the New Paltz Day, where everybody is exhausted. And I got to write those 4 little scenes of each character being exhausted and then having comfort from the person they most wanted comfort from.
So
And
good.
it was sort of the way I was feeling. I needed that by the end of that book. And I'm very glad that ended up happening and that the structure ended up forcing me to write that, because it ended up being one of my favorite chapters.
And it's totally real, right? Like at the end of this tour, they are exhausted. They're tired of each other. They're tired of everything. They're tired of living in the van, right? So yeah, it's so real. And by the way, I love that you brought the tour through Providence, Rhode Island. I'm a Rhode Islander originally, and they stopped in Narragansett, and then they went to Providence, and I was like, yes, I knew they would make it there. There was a punk scene there for sure back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So you mentioned sort of a little bit, maybe you didn't intend to, that there might be more in store for Sam and Max in the future.
Sure.
Do you have any sort of ideas that you're willing to share about, like, is it way out in the timeline? Are you thinking that it's immediately after? What are you kind of dreaming about?
So for the two of them, I want to move forward enough in time that I have an idea of like what this kind of successful next step is for the two of them. But I also have another character that I've been having the wings that I want to put into play. And I need him to not be older than a certain age. So basically the number of years it's moving ahead is based on what age I need him to be.
Okay.
And so we're going to see Sam and Max starting out and their life pretty happy and successful. And then this character is going to show up and kind of throw a monkey wrench into everything.
Oh no. Oh my gosh. Okay. I can't wait. I'm terrified, but I also can't wait. That sounds amazing.
I think it's going to be mostly a good thing. You know, it's hard. I've been thinking so much about romance sequels because I'm writing one for Cole and Ezra too, for He's Not For Me. And you know, so often it's hard to figure out what you want to decide to do. But I think that with most of my characters, like dealing with the shit that they have been burying is generally a good idea. And I think, you know, with both Cole and Ezra and Sam and Max, that they all have lots and lots and lots of stuff rolling underneath them that comes from their families and from their childhood, and that they need to unpack. And so that's going to be one of the things that they're dealing with.
So we have to talk about He's Not For Me, because I was turning the pages so fast because I had to find out what was going to happen because I loved them so much. And I needed my happily ever after. So, and, you know, I intended on reading like, you know, maybe an hour just to kind of get a sense of the characters. And then I couldn't put the freaking book down and I couldn't stop. And 5 hours later, these people are in my soul. So, can you just tell me a little bit about that book and like how that came about? And
sure. I mean, that was my first one. And, you know, I've talked about this, I think, on some of my socials, but I got my start on writing fan fiction. I had been a writer a little bit when I was in high school and early college. I didn't think I was any good. I put it aside. I ended up going into academia, teaching art history for, you know, all this time. And, I got involved in the Good Omens fandom and started writing fan fiction for Good Omens and wrote that for about 2 years. Started writing things that were just like, they were barely Good Omens fics. They were original novels that had the Good Omens characters in them, sort of. But they were just like so obviously like human AU out the, you know, I wrote Omegaverse, I wrote vampires. I never wrote vampires. I wrote werewolves, though. Fairies. So I realized I didn't belong in that space anymore because, like, I wasn't writing fan fiction, really. I was just borrowing these characters and writing my own stories about them. But then when it got to the point of trying to write my own thing, I kind of got really, really nervous about it for a while. And I had like a 6-month period where I just wasn't really sure what to do. And what finally got me out of it was I watched Fire Island, that wonderful movie with Joel Kim Booster and Bowen Yang and everybody. And I was thinking about how beautiful that film is and how funny and how original. despite the fact that it's based on Pride and Prejudice.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah.
and that it just, or a movie like Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is, again, so tropey. Like, how many times is the trope of one prince and a kind of a prince from another place
Oh
or
my
a princess
gosh.
from another place? These are
Yeah.
such, like, the tropes are so basic, but original stories can still come from them. So I was like trying to figure out what I could do. I've been kind of obsessed with these books that are set in New England. I had this whole idea about these like kind of like old money and new money New England families. And Ezra and Seth were going to be an old money New England family, and Cole was going to be new money. And then I went for a walk one day, and Ezra just popped into my head, and he would just starts yelling at me. And he was just like, "No, I am not that at all.
Oh my
What are you
gosh.
talking about? Of course, your first main character has to be from New Jersey. You love writing about New Jersey. Um,
Poor
you have,
Kroll.
it has to be Atlantic Highlands because you love Atlantic Highlands so much. You love that Navesink Lighthouse, and the Navesink Lighthouse has to be in the story. And also I should be an adjunct professor because you have an axe to grind about academia. And so, I was just walking around my neighborhood. I'm looking out the window because that's exactly where I was walking. I just like took this big walk around my neighborhood, and by the time I got home, I had Ezra.
Oh my gosh. That's
Um,
amazing. What a
yeah,
process.
yeah. So,
I love that he was talking to you because he talks to us in the book as well. Like
uh-huh,
he's telling us what his inner thoughts are in
right.
such a funny way, and I
Hmm.
can totally imagine him yelling at you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He's sort of like, he's based a little bit on, partly on me, but also on my sister and also my brother. My sister's the person I know who has the most Ezra voice of anybody that I know. So
Oh,
sometimes I will go and ask her, like, did I get this right? What is Ezra actually thinking in this scene?
oh
She's
my,
been helping me a lot with the sequel.
oh,
To
amazing.
like, I'll be like, this is what Cole's going to be going through. What's Ezra going to say about that? And she'll be like, this very blunt thing. So yeah, he was interesting character to write.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what happens to them next, honestly. And it's funny you were talking about putting yourself into the books. Who are you in Take It From the Top?
Well, I'm Max. And that's the funny thing. And you know, I talked about this, but like Michael Sheen said this one time that he was talking about like how a lot of his own characters when he's acting, or he's kind of taking his own personality and being like, let me dial this dial up a little bit, let me dial this dial this way, and then the character will eventually emerge from like his bag of tricks. And I
I
feel that
love
way
that.
with Ezra and Max. That Ezra is if you take all of my dials and dial them to the absolute most snarky, most negative place they could come from,
Oh
then you
my
get Ezra.
gosh.
But if you turn them all to the absolute opposite side to get like the most smutty, the most like vulgar, the most outrageous, the silliest drunk, that's Max. And that's like
Oh my
me when I'm in my
gosh.
absolute best mood is I'm very much Max.
That is so awesome. I love Max. What a great character. Ugh, God. Take it from the top. I'm hoping that a lot of people are going to read this book
I
because
hope so
it
too.
is so much fun and it's just so sweet and it's kind of low angst even, right? But like you get to that point with these two that you're like, knock it off. Will you
Hmm.
just have a conversation, please?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And
and
poor
that's what
Sam is
I'm.
just so afraid to do that.
Oh,
Because
I know, because he's going to
yeah,
lose his best friend if he does, or at least he
right,
thinks he will.
right, exactly. And
Isn't
I
that
mean,
real though?
if you think about it from his perspective, his family's awful. He's got so much pressure on him. Like he and Max are in the opposite in that way because like Max is the baby of the family, and nobody's ever wanted anything from Max. Like nobody's ever thought would amount to anything. Well, meanwhile, Sam is like the older brother with these much younger siblings. He's got a father who puts a tremendous amount of pressure on him, and then he is gay in Pennsylvania, in like rural Pennsylvania in the late 90s. He doesn't have Grindr. He doesn't have the internet really. He doesn't have any way to find anybody who's like himself. Um, and he's got this best friend who loves him anyway, and he's afraid to go any further than that. And
Oh,
to
it's
where it
so
could possibly go.
real.
Yeah.
That is so real. Like back so in the 80s when I was in school, I was definitely the only queer person in all of Rhode Island. I knew it, right? I knew it. I
Right.
was the
Exactly.
one, right? And
Exactly.
so like if you have a friend, like why would you risk that?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then for Max, like, we find out what his sexuality is, but he knows that he's not like Sam. And so that actually makes it a little bit even harder for him because of the fact that, he doesn't, his blueprint is not the same as Sam's blueprint, which is like, I figured out this exact thing about myself when I was 13 years old, or probably 12 or 11 years old, or maybe even earlier than that, because everybody can
Yeah.
tell. And Max is like, well, I'm not that. And I like girls. So what am I? And there's no blueprint for that when you're growing up in the 90s. I mean,
None.
I was by in the 90s. It was kind of awful. Like the messaging coming from TV is awful. And
Oh
so
my
of
God.
course he's never going to figure it out.
And bisexual erasure is still such a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
People
Yeah.
absolutely don't believe that it's a possibility. And I'm like, why do we not understand that all
Right.
things are possibilities?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so to end this off, a little something different. Have you ever heard of a Proust questionnaire?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, so Marcel Proust was this author back in the early 1900s, late 1800s in France, and he wrote À la recherche du temps perdu, which is just an absolutely famous book. And he was a gay guy, and he used to play parlor games in his house. And one of the things he would do is he would ask these questions that would spur on conversation. So Vanity Fair brought this back a few years back, and then their editors changed and they took it away. But these questions, there's 35 of them, and they're just like conversation starters. So I'm going to ask you one that's sort of random that you haven't heard before, and then you're going to try to answer it, and then I'm going to answer it as well. Okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, should be easy. Which talent would you most like to have?
Which talent? Oh, that's easy. Drawing.
Mm.
Yeah. That's like, I mean, I used to teach in an art school. I love artists. I can sort of draw a little bit. I very much am a believer in the idea that like anybody can get better at drawing if they spend a lot of time doing it and practice every day. But it's something that I haven't had the time to invest into it. I would really love to take a class and like a community college class and get better at it. I really want to take figure drawing, and I would love to draw my own characters because, I can, whenever I have enough money, I can pay somebody like Angie to draw beautiful pictures of Sam and Max. And I'm hoping that Angie's going to draw me some more pictures of Sam and Max soon. But I could draw them all day, and I really wish I could. I'd love to see them.
That would be amazing. Like to have the author actually be able to illustrate their own characters.
Oh, nice.
There's a guy named Nick Alamance who's writing. He just has one coming out. It's called Relationship.
Oh yeah, I've seen video. And is he doing the art for that himself?
He does the art for it himself.
Man, I am so like, if I ever have professional jealousy for anybody, and I'm saying this like with the greatest amount of love, the most professional jealousy I have for anybody are artist writers who can draw their own characters. Because there was a great artist writer in the Good Omens fandom who I was really jealous of all the time too. But yeah, that's amazing. And it's interesting because like I've done the commissioning thing twice now for both books. And I've realized like trying to communicate like this is the picture that I see in my head to somebody else, no matter how good they are and how good you think you are with words, is very, very, very hard. The Sam and Max cover is exactly right. Like those are the boys I saw in my head, and somehow they're on the page, and I can't believe it.
Oh wow!
But yeah, I would love to have that.
And I'm so glad you didn't go the AI route, because there are some people who are like going and putting like AI like models and stuff and having them in poses, and AI is just not the thing.
Yeah. I mean, my background is as an art historian, and I taught at an art school, and so I have so much respect for artists and for visual media, and you're going to see that in my books, I think too. I'm really looking forward to digging into Cole's personality as an artist.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, Ezra, he's not going to say much. Because he's Ezra, so he's gonna be like, well, Bree's wedding dress was white. He's lots
of white.
Yeah, he's not going to be that guy. He's going to tell you like how bad all of the smells were that made him anxious, but he's not going to be able to like really articulate something unless it's like his own special interest. But I'm really, really, really looking forward to digging into Cole's personality as an artist and having him be able to tell us.
I can't wait to see what comes up, because we know little bits about Cole's past, just enough to give us the context for the long separation that they experienced, but not enough to really understand him as a character. And oh my gosh, I'm dying to know what happens with him. So I want to learn classical piano.
Okay.
It's just one of those things that I see. I was watching Call Me By Your Name recently, and Timothée Chalamet was like playing the piano, and he was actually playing it. And I just thought to myself, Wow, what an amazing talent to be able to have to like just your fingers just do things and as if independent of your brain, right? Like
Yeah.
so
That's
cool.
actually another thing that you can learn. That's it's the same as drawing, that anybody can learn piano. And that's another thing I've actually tried to do. But it's again, like anything that requires like lots and lots and lots of practice is very hard for me to get done around this house. Um,
I can't
Especially
imagine
because
why.
like the piano makes noises and then the noises attract the children. But there are people who teach beginner piano on YouTube videos, and you can pick piano up, and
I should.
they tell you that like you should start it when you're 5 years old, and you need to learn the muscle memory. But I've seen like YouTube piano teachers talking about how actually an adult student who is really motivated can actually make a lot of difference pretty quickly. So
Wow.
you
That's amazing. Like,
should learn
as soon as
classical
I
piano.
get past my current obsession with making and editing videos and such,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the
maybe I'll
thing is
have
like
some
there's always like
time.
another hobby that you could get into.
There are, right?
Yeah.
But this one so far is my most fun because I'm meeting interesting people like you. Oh my
Oh.
gosh. So thank you so much, Sadie. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I can't wait to see Take It From the Top come out on shelves on August 4th,
Mm-hmm.
2026.
Yep.
That is your launch date.
Yes.
So it's just going to be such a good day for you. And I can't wait to, I'm going to buy a physical copy of both of them now because they are both like among my favorite books. And so I just can't wait to get my hands on a physical copy of it because I was reading it on Kindle and there's just, I love my Kindle, no shame, but oh my gosh, I want the physical copy.
I will say that for Take It From the Top especially, I was just working on that this morning, finalizing the physical copy. And I have seen the proof copy of it, and I've now made all the little corrections in the proof copy. That is going to be a pretty book, if I do say so myself. I have those chapter frontispieces with the illustrations and the
Oh,
handwriting
good.
on them.
Yeah.
Look gorgeous in the book. So it's going to be one that I think is really worth having on your shelf. And plus, Angie's art is so, so, so pretty.
So good, right?
So, and it looks amazing in person. So I highly
Uh,
recommend that one as a
I
physical
can't wait
book.
to see it. So August 4th, everybody goes and buys this book from Sadie Hepworth. Sadie,
That
thank
would
you
be
so
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
for
Bye.
for everything. Bye.